Okay. So now, after the nationwide boycott was called on General Mills here back on June 9th of 2003 by community activist Alonzo Washington and a few of those us who were supporting him concerning the sexism and racism that was going on down here at General Mills. Well, after the boycott was called on General Mills, well, General Mills, of course, they agreed to invest in the black community, and they also adopted a policy that's supposed to be against racism or racist practice or sexism and all this other kind of foolishness that was allowed to go on down there pretty bluntly at the company down there. And again, after the nationwide boycott, General Mills agreed to do these things. And I want to touch first of all on the area where they want to invest in the community, preferably the black community. Now, I have nothing against the black communities being supported or helped, but I just want to know the real reason, the American peoples to know the real reason why General Mills is really taking any interest in really supporting or doing anything for the black urban community, and that's really because of a nationwide boycott that was threatened against it. Other than that, before that, as stated in the paper by community activist Alonzo Washington, General Mills had no concern, none whatsoever, in supporting the urban poor or the black community. They had no concern about doing it, and they certainly weren't doing it. And that was, again, one of the reasons why community activist Alonzo Washington had made that as one of the lists of demands, because he noticed that there was no active participation of General Mills in the African American community and supporting in any matter and any sort of that nature concerning the black community. So that's why it again was one of the lists of demands that community activist Alonzo Washington given to General Mills to do so. So again, I just want the American peoples to know the truth behind when you hear about General Mills sponsoring certain blacks or sponsoring black-owned businesses or whatever it may be. Well, know the truth behind the scene of why they're really doing that, and they're doing it because they was threatened with a nationwide boycott, and it was also a list of demand. And another reason is because they do not want a lot of the issue of racism to be addressed that is taking place at the company down here, and a lot of the stuff is still going on. And keep in mind, now this is after the nationwide boycott that was called on General Mills, and they also adopted, they allege, a policy here that is supposed to not allow racism and stuff to go on. I also want to touch bases on about the investment in the community. Well, according to Washington, community activists that is that the agreement was like for 3 years from 2003 to 2006. Well, once that agreement terms had ended, well, General Mills hurry up and immediately stop investing in the black community during that point in time. Now keep in mind, this is again after the nationwide boycott. According to Mr. Washington's words when he was talking with General Mills, is that the company saying that they felt that they got everything taken care of and that matter has been resolved, and the Washington statement about the that grassroots support had ended. But then something happened. General Mills alleged that they had agreed to make sure the racism and stuff stopped and all this here. Well, and they certainly wasn't going to invest anymore at that particular time when 2006 had came in, and that was the ending of the period that they said they was going to invest with the black communities. Well, something happened. One of their racist employees came forth with a hang noose rope and threw it over a steel beam during that particular time. Back up over this time, it occurred here in 07, because the agreement was to stop here in 06 concerning General Mills not giving any more support to the black community. But when the racist employee came forth in 07, you know, with this hang loose rope, throwing it over a steel beam and calling a black employee to it, well then again, that put General Mills in the limelight before public news or the local news, again, for racism. And because of that, well, General Mills don't want a lot of the attention of racism to be addressed at the company down here. They again want forth to go ahead on and to invest in the community again, to try to keep that, because keep in mind, community activist Alonzo Washington himself after he had talked it and seen what went down again about the hang noose issue here in the Joseph B. Brown, and you can see that for yourself in part 5 on my video. Just go to part 5 and you can hear and see it for yourself. The community activist Alonzo Washington, quote unquote, stated how that he was 100% disappointed because General Mills went back on their words concerning their policy of making sure that this racist and racism and stuff would be kept checked and under control, and would not be condoned or allowed, because keep in mind, General Mills supposedly to have adopted a zero tolerance policy concerning racism. Again, General Mills, they did go back on their word, because if they had really upheld their word, like they say, there's no way under heaven that racist employee would have still been employed. We're talking about a hate crime act. We're talking about something that, you know, it's a disgrace to every black person, because we know that that type of hate crime act and what happened to our forefathers and things, but yet this racist employees are still being allowed to work down there. And General Mills said they had adopted zero no tolerance policy for that, but yet, you know, General Mills gets on there and treat it like it's just an isolated incident. You'll see all of that in part 5. If you go to my part 5 on there, click on there, and you'll hear and see what community activist Alonzo Washington had to say about it, and what General Mills had to say about this hang loose situation around up over here. General Mills just called it an isolated incident. You know, it's like if it's just, you know, an old tire that's being flattered, this went, you know, no, it's a hate crime act. But yet General Mills promised that they're going to have a zero no tolerance for this, and this is why community activist Alonzo Washington was disappointed when he found out that General Mills went back on their word. This is what he concluded. And in order to keep that issue from continuously being addressed, well, General Mills, no doubt, wanted to go ahead and continue to invest in the black community with, you know, funds or grants and etc. Because other than that, they would have stopped it if it wasn't because of the nationwide boycott from day one. They never would have been investing in the black community, period. And that's clearly stated from basically what Washington was saying when he found out that there was no participation or no active participation of General Mills in the black community during that particular period of time. And after the boycott was called on General Mills, they agreed to invest for a while in a 3-year terms period. When that was up, that would have been it. But in 07, as stated out earlier, one of the racist employees came forth with a rope with a noose in it, moved over a steel beam, called a black employee to it, and again General Mills was facing the cameras because of racism. And so General Mills just go ahead and put a little more monies out in the community around here to try to keep the issue of racism from being addressed in those issues, because there's no way an employee who does such hate crime, racial discriminatory act of behavior like this racist employee did and still be employed down there, that's totally, you know, unheard of.